We are back live with another quick-ish session with our amigo John Hill, who I was telling everyone earlier today was going to give a keynote. He has been an enthusiastic adopter of K6, which has us very happy. And very happy to have you here, John. Um, how are you? How are you feeling? How has
I'm
been the day for you?
I'm great. It's a little exhausting, but it was all great stuff all day. Excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's such an honor and such. We were so excited when we knew or found out that you were going to do a
Yeah,
keynote. What was your keynote going to be
yeah,
about? And oh, those fun things that we want to talk today a little bit around KCX, your liking for the tool, or what is your adoption. But before we get into that, um, is this the first conference that you go to after all that we had
yes,
these
yep.
past years?
First one back in the real world, and it's great being back. Like you were just there, just a random hallway conversation, and I saw AI and testing for the first time ever.
Well, yeah,
Actually,
it's some spoiler alert. We just saw the thing happening for real. I mean, I had never seen it like truly happening. There's a guy that implemented it, and we were all. I'm happy that I was just like, I'm gonna steal you. Like, oh, what's happening here?
yeah,
And I was like, really cool. And I was also asking for this conference because I remember that you were we're reporting from Star East 2022 in Orlando, Florida, and but we had some other experiences before. You were already presenting on other conferences before this one. Can you tell us a little bit about Tisqua? I always say it wrong. I butcher it.
no, it's Tiska,
Tisca.
Tiska.
Okay.
Yeah, so I did a performance talk at Tiska 2022, and talked about some of the same things about today, but specifically talked about the XK6 browser project a little bit more in depth at that time. Um, and at that time, it was really the way we were using internally to kind of solve the problem of getting real user, real front end, unapologetic measurements out of a real browser and into a real time series database, which
Yeah.
is a very complicated problem. So
And the benefits that you get when you do that are kind of outstanding, right?
yeah, so effectively, when so what we found is we were able to control for all of the kind of the variables associated with front end performance by effectively getting rid of network altogether, injecting it back on our own terms. um, but even we found even when testing nothing, um, and that is simply loading a browser, injecting a basic HTML page, and then testing that the HTML page that we just injected actually rendered. There's still a significant run over run variance, um, sometimes up to 50%.
Oh,
So the only way out I could find was just taking a lot of samples, and taking as many samples as possible. And doing that in a DIY approach is okay if you have a team of developers that can do that. But what we found it was just easier to do it with XK6 browser and the Influx exporter.
oh wow. And you kind of spoiled my next
Oh,
question,
sorry.
but no, it's awesome because it's so cool that you're already spitting it out. But and here's another little bit of information that I missed to ask you.
Mhm.
Where do you work? Where are you implementing all this awesome basic stuff?
Yeah, so I'm it's a super once in a lifetime opportunity to work at the NASA Ames Research Center out in California.
Wow.
And I'm working on the Viper mission, which is to send a lunar rover back. I should say, send a lunar rover, not back. It's never been there before. To the south pole of the moon to basically search for water, and then that will be then used and leveraged in the Artemis program, which is to send humans back to the moon and basically restart human spaceflight. And so it's critical to find water and use it while we're there. because it's very expensive to bring it.
Hmm.
Like a Dasani bottle is exceptionally expensive, but um, yeah. So what's driving all of this is using the product I work on called Open MCT, which is Open Mission Control Technologies. It's basically a browser-based um, mission control framework. Um, and what it effectively solves is, a lot of what is built in NASA is highly specialized because it's a very particular problem. And so what needed to be done is there needed to be kind of like or there was a space to fill, um, for no pun intended, for a for a kind of like a generic framework. And so it's used by a lot of different missions and different organizations, but this is one of the first. And so um, it's web based, so that means it's going to have performance considerations and web performance considerations, which I've come to learn since joining is a very kind of unexplored problem. Like in today's demo or today's keynote, I talked about what's coming, but
Hmm.
even that is coming down the
It's
pipe.
still happening.
Yeah,
It's just popping up
yeah.
into the world.
So it's a super exciting project. I wish the mission was happening later, so some of the stuff could have existed earlier into it. But we made it work. And actually, one of the cool things that we ended up doing is while we waited for some of the performance framework stuff to come online, like XK6 browser, we actually used the same underlying framework, Playwright, to start automating our functional tests.
Hmm.
And then now we're able to leverage that in our
To
performance
gather
testing.
both sides of
Yeah.
the great flavors. And it amazes me a little bit that all this is because from the old days I have this experience, as you say, web-based is like, oh, should we use web-based on something as critical
Hmm.
or as important? And it's great that you're helping and making it to perform, pun intended, um, at the level. And in all this story, when you were saying that you got into K6, you found a way to use it for the needs. But rephrasing the question a little bit, how do you ended up on K6? How did you found it? What was the process that like, oh, this tool can help me on these particular requirements that I'm having?
So actually, so that happened. So my experience with load testing tool previous to this was explicitly JMeter,
Hmm.
and I used that back about 7 years ago. And
Whoa.
when I was, which is ancient history now, and then about 3 years ago, I needed to solve a load testing problem. So I kind of looked around to see what was available, and at that time, um, I ended up using K6 for another project I was working on, and I thought it was awesome because I didn't have to. All you have to focus on is kind of the specific problem you're trying to solve that's application specific, and less of like how to get it set up or what to do after you get it set up or what to do with the results or that sort of thing. So I didn't when I came to this project, I didn't really even. There might be competitors out there. I
You
didn't.
already had it
Yeah,
in
I
mind,
didn't.
and you
Yeah.
were already like, but when you were looking for K6, were you aware that the K6 browser was already around, or?
No, so I was explicitly just going to use Playwright's built-in har file generation to dump something and then get it out. And actually, what interested me in K6 was the fact that you can send uh, connect via a natively supported WebSocket client,
Oh yeah.
which is not typical. I mean, JMeter you can do it, in some of the paid for solutions you can, but it's a hard problem.
You have to kind of go through some loops to enable it, right?
Exactly. And our application is using WebSocket, so it was just a natural fit. And funny enough, that is one of the key bottlenecks in our system right now. So,
Oh,
yeah.
well, it's interesting that you walk into the solution and you figure out like, hey, it has a web front end, it has a backend front, part of the solution, and that you could integrate it. Are you running tests with both things at the same time, the
N-
backend protocol,
No, so
WebSocket, or?
that's on the horizon for other projects. Right now, we are specifically just focusing on our sphere of influence, which is the front end. The back end teams
It's a
are
separate team.
a separate team doing their
Okay.
own thing. I have provided the tooling, and it's
And
up to them.
suggested
Yeah,
like, hey,
exactly.
here's this cool thing.
Yeah, and they can continue with whatever they like. But when it comes to once we finish our objectives, that's when we'll probably set things up to kind of work with maybe taking whatever they have and rolling it into K6. So
It's interesting that it's still separate teams and different entities, right? I'm a bit surprised because I was like, it's NASA. They should already have everything kind of together or everyone talking to each other. But it's cool as well that you can suggest this tool that you like and that you are enjoying. But when you started using XK6 browser and implementing it, did you find any difficulties, any challenges, or vice versa, anything that was uh, delightful or harmful?
so I would say that I didn't really have any difficulties getting Case 6 itself set up
Mm-hmm.
or anything like that. Um, I ran into some of the edge cases pretty quickly with it, actually, with the inability to use the same event loop to share data between the API test and the WebSocket connection. So that's actually part of the reason we're kind of just waiting a little bit to see if that kind of materializes. But if even if it doesn't, I think ultimately, um, because we aren't going to support a large volume of users, as much as an e-commerce site. I think we may just use XK6 browser itself, just to do all of the load testing.
And it's very interesting to know that you have these needs, these requirements to communicate in between the socket and the API. Because, well, I might have some influence, or
Yeah.
but it's an active project. It's being developed, and we're adding features constantly. And I'm sure you already kind of mentioned your need and made it aware
Yeah,
with the
yeah,
team.
yeah. That wasn't a call out or a plug or anything. Yeah, I was just saying that's kind of where you asked where it
We're
was very easy to
struggling
get
and
stuck, and
having.
that's where we kind of got. But again, that'll just happen in due time. I'm not certainly the first person to suggest it, and we have much more pressing. We don't want to say anything disparaging about the back end. The front end, has its own problems to work through. So.
And if it's not too much oversharing, or if you're allowed, what problems are you identifying with XK6 browser, or what are you, with all this repetition of your metrics and figuring out, have you had?
So we're fairly early on to this whole process. Everything that we're figuring out has been reactive. We've been told of a problem, we've diagnosed the problem with Chrome DevTools, and then we fix the problem. So we just effectively add that test, or that's whatever that is, to our regimen of tests to run. The idea is hopefully soon to start being a little bit more proactive um, in whatever kind of comes its way. So I really think that the power that we'll see is when we start to identify the critical user flows
Mm-hmm.
of the application, and then just start running them for no reason other than they're critical,
Just see what
and then
happens.
see what happens. That's really what I'm looking forward to.
What are you using to gather all these critical user paths, and are you tracing, logging,
No
observability, or?
tracing. So that one thing I'd like to get into place first is actually some of that really exciting stuff that's been happening with open telemetry.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't believe it when I first started looking at it in July of last year,
Mm-hmm.
and they were just at that point had just agreed to sort of like smash some projects together. Datadog was looking at leveraging it in its internal tooling, and so it seems like there's a convergence for tracing to all end up on the open standard, which is amazing.
Yeah.
It's truly amazing. And I was just looking at it before I gave the keynote to see if I could like roll it in any particular way. Um, and it's still a super active community, and it's still making pretty big leaps and bounds. And that'll be probably ultimately what we'll end up implementing for what we do internally. I'm not sure what I'm allowed to say about what we do internally, but we do. I will say we, you know, it's very needs based in terms of the mission. It's very like, there's, and there's a very good relationship between science and engineering, and so again, I've never been coached on what to say here, so I'm just gonna say,
We don't want to get
yeah,
into top secret
yeah,
stuff
no,
or.
it's none of that. I just what I would say is that the feedback is immediate, and the users are well understood and have names. They're really real people that will really be involved in the mission. So um, tracing in that sense isn't as useful if we're actively working with them. So
Yeah, because I'm guessing in the particular needs, it's not like, how to say, not so much related to load or having hundreds and billions of users
exactly.
at the same time. You have particular users that you need to be taking care or seeing what they do or what are the key things. And it's very interesting because, I mean, all I can picture are these Apollo movies
Yeah.
where they are like checking but what are the things that they're actually going to be checking or jumping on? And I'm guessing unless you are kind of like an actual rocket scientist, you don't know truly what is going to
Yep.
happen. Or
Yeah, and that's been up until very recently. It had been more theoretical, and we've had people outside of our organization send us issues, performance issues, and that's really been helpful because that kind of guides kind of what we do. They're not specific necessarily to our mission, but would have the same impact for the users of our future mission.
other elements, other
Yeah,
components.
yeah.
And once you receive these reports, how do you validate them? What do you do?
It is pretty easy to just do exactly. It's pretty in the cases that I'm thinking of. It's pretty immediate what the problem is, and often it's a functional regression or something of that nature of an older project that just has secondary effects of performance. So one sort of thing will change, then it'll have secondary performance issues related to it. So we can solve the functional and the performance at the same time.
Oh,
So it's a great. And
double
so
whammy.
yeah, it's a double whammy. And I think you probably to interview you a little bit about this. You probably have a better way of describing, right? Having, I mean, I feel like performance testing itself is very the overlap between performance testing and functional testing is pretty. There is a lot of overlap,
Hmm.
and I think. Um, I mean, do you find other teams kind of finding the overlap for the product without necessarily the organizational structures underneath, or what?
I'm,
What are you
I'm
seeing?
I'm the one being interviewed
Yeah,
now, but that's awesome. No, I'm happy to fill you up on all these things. Traditionally, I have seen that there's a disconnection. Like
yep,
I would see functional teams doing all the testing, all the QI functionality, blah blah, and it arrives to us. And I mean, the waterfall days, which many organizations are still stuck in that, and I receive it and it sucks. I'm like, why hasn't anyone in functional paid attention
yep,
to this, noticed it, or reported it? And you have no idea how often that happens. There's no connection. There's
yes,
like, I'm functional, I don't pay attention to anything performance, and it's something that should be integrated together. Something that I like that the philosophy for K6 is trying to push left, and that not even at the functional part, but when the developer is creating the application or anything, it's paired up with a automation script or something that gathers performance metrics, or that you will be able to observe or have traces of, or some instrumentation. Some of the things that I also like a lot of open telemetry, you start to implement it, you have a universal format for that, you
mm,
don't have to mess up, which and kind of plugging all together Grafana. Also, you have some predefined dashboards and things on how you can observe those universal formats. It closes the loop
yeah,
very pretty nicely. And but in my experience, and it's something that I would like to change or help the world to promote, they are not closing that gap, and functional and performance are not talking to each other than that much. I am hopeful that in the near future, with the automation pyramid, everyone understanding where they are, and that we can get performance metrics from functional with a
Hmm.
good telemetry, with a good instrumentation, good observability. It's super easy, not only from functional, as you say, once in production, we have real users, particular users, we know what they are doing. And you close the loop into like, hey, in production, they are having this
Yep.
experience, this new feature. We were talking earlier, for the ones that did not know, we had a panel. John joined us and was providing some feedback, some recommendations, and closing these feedback loops, getting baselines, getting comparisons, because I don't know, and I love something that you are doing with XK6 browser, which is more about the repeatability of performance tests rather than just load testing and slamming, because it's not what the platform that you're using. It's not a concern, right?
Hmm.
You, but how many people are going to be using it in
I,
the end?
I I don't know how many I can say. I can say on our own systems right now, it's around 10. So yeah, exactly right.
But it's critical
Yes, but it's
to have a
critical.
good
Yeah,
performance.
exactly.
So it's the other side of the coin, where, and I love it because you are engaging more like continuous repeatability tracing and observing deviations, and that something gets too much out of whack. Um, and it's something that I think performance should move towards and start embracing and implementing it. But I don't know. What are your experiences on this repeatability and that you are being able to log everything?
Yeah. So yeah, for repeatability, I think we talked about baseline generation.
Hmm.
We talked about testing nothing. Did we do that in this one or the?
No, but it's something as well. Like when there's no activity,
Yeah.
what happens?
Hmm.
And what's your experience there?
Yeah.
I'm
Exactly. Well, so yeah, forgive me if I'm repeating myself, but yeah. So what we found is we needed a way to kind of discern what an application change is versus just basically the noise
regular
in the
day to
signal.
day or
And so what you can see, and exactly, that's the other thing is uh, there's not only totally fixed lab environment run over run variation, but there's a number of people using the system arbitrarily throughout the day, or a number of processes running. So interestingly, one of the things that got me into testing or performance testing was we were going to scale our application, and this was at another company 7 years ago. And this is a weird anecdote that goes right into what you're saying.
okay,
uh,
okay.
we what I almost got an architect in serious trouble because I ran these perfectly defensible, meticulous performance tests that everyone signed off on, and the results were bad. They described like very specifically that we had an architectural problem, um, and what we ended up finding was we were triggering the tests at midnight, which was the exact time that literally every cron job on the entire system was being triggered. So the performance was terrible for that 8 minutes of everything else being triggered at that same time. So if we had just run over run continuously throughout the day, we probably would have noticed that it wasn't a fault at that given time. It was simply
Something
some
else
other.
happening
Yeah, and
and
for that product, no one was ever going to use it at midnight. It was a
mhm.
9 to 5 product. So that's another thing to look out for in terms of run over run variation. um, but again, so we kind of do everything that we can to fix all those variables, but they're still there. So large numbers really helps, and really that also feeds kind of right into using a proper time series database like Prometheus or InfluxDB. I'm not. What other things do you support? Is there?
Well, Grafana just launched Mimir, or
I,
peculiar
yeah.
pronunciation, but and it's supposed to help and improve. It's improving some of the Prometheus functionalities and having all these databases. But I know that at least from the K6 side, it's very easy to generate an exporter or send it to other places. The other day I was talking like, hey, Elastic, should
Mhm.
we be able to send us docs? And I mean, it's not the best solution for metrics, but you can go nuts and do whatever you want in these solutions. Some of the others, like Microsoft SQL or something, like they're like, I know it's possible, you should be able to, but you need to be creative around it. But I think an advantage, and probably you already experienced it, is the transparency to send all your results and metrics,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Um, did you have any challenge while trying to do that, or what was your experience?
No, no. I guess one of the things we found was, going back to some of the design decisions between push and pull and the different databases, time series databases that we wanted to use. And what I was just to add on to that last point. The thing that I like about Influx and Prometheus is that they allow you to kind of generate as much data as you want, and then provide basically free computational power to compute the mean, median, the
Mm.
99th percentile, all of that stuff that you could do other ways or by hands or with scripts, but it all goes in, and then allow you to kind of like roll down the time resolution over time depending on how much that you want to keep. All of that is free. All of that is a hard problem to do manually, and
Mm.
so that's getting it off of a machine and into a time series database was um, you know the main thing that drew me to XK6 browser, because it was free. It just worked. um,
And I would add, and I'm stealing from some of the comments that you did earlier, it's not only free, but it's quick, easy, and setupable,
yeah.
like almost right away,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
You showed lots of dexterity the other day, just spinning up and having all the environment ready, right? For the audience that do not know, at the moment that John was going to present, he had an issue with the laptop, and you managed to get everything set up, right?
Yeah, I had I could not present from the one laptop that I had. I had the click button to share screen, and I had tested it. Pre-presentation, everything worked fine. For whatever reason, it didn't work. So I had to, about 10 minutes before they started recording, I had to change machines, install everything from scratch, and do all of that. And because of the provided Docker file that I think was even came from K6 or
Yeah,
Grafana,
most probably.
it just I did Docker Compose up. I went to Grafana.com and grabbed all the templates I needed for Grafana, and it was on. And I don't even know if anyone noticed.
No, and it was so transparent. I
Yeah,
was looking at
yeah,
it, and I was like, I know that he's gonna talk about
yeah,
K6 browser. He's using this component, this, and you told me like that's not part of the
that
show.
was
That's
not
not
part of the
that's what
show.
I
Yeah,
was
yeah,
planning originally.
yeah.
And to everyone, that's something that it impressed me. Like it's so efficient that you
Mhm.
can quickly in a presentation, just like saving it right away. Boom, 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 boom. Download up, and we're good to go. And it's another thing that I kind of enjoy of these solutions is like they are not massive. You can just reference whatever you need and pull it and assemble, but it's super transparent, super straightforward.
Yeah, and I think it speaks to some of the quick start aspect of it. The quick start is what I think is really powerful. And I think it gets back kind of the laziness of web developers themselves. Like if I know several of them, um, that if they have to spend more than an hour on setup and
Mhm.
documentation, that's it. They're moving on to the next product. Um, and I think honestly that's why Cypress did as well as it did early on. Selenium didn't really have great for going back to functional testing,
Mhm.
didn't really have great Node and a JavaScript support out of the box. You had to get your binaries from different places or use some other weird project or something like that. But Cypress was just npm install Cypress and you're off. And I think that's really why it took off. It's just that quick start web developer mentality. I need something. The less amount of friction, the more likely they are to keep it, even if it's not to speak to Cypress, even if it is not necessarily suit all their needs. Um, just web developers are very, um, I don't know, lazy.
Well, we all are at
Yeah, yeah,
a given
yeah.
point, but it's a critical point that I think it's. I think it was the Unicorn Project, one of these books where, and I know it's a problem when you arrive at a project and you need to get an instance of the solution that you are going to work on, and it's like an epic task. You have to go through several loops of fire
Yep.
and download things, get components, DLLs, and if you manage to get or your test environment, what you want to test, or everything that you have around, like quickly, that speeds up the process because so many teams become unfunctional, no pun intended, when you cannot even bring that up. If
Yeah.
you couldn't bring up that system that fast on that presentation, what would have you been able to do? Then
Yep.
there goes the presentation
Hmm.
or the whole project, the whole team,
Yeah,
when
exactly.
someone new is coming. So I want to be respectful of your time. We know we are all closing the day. We are all tired. It has been. Yeah, I'm sure that you had a night of sleep with all the pressure from the keynote and the nervousness, right?
Yeah, no, the last thing they said to me when I showed up was the internet may not work, and I was like, what? Yeah.
Oh,
So I spent a little bit of my night worrying about what to do to work around it, but it all worked out fine. That they everything was great here. So
I'm glad, and
yeah.
I'm sure that you're also a little bit eager to go to rest. I see people, probably the drinks are coming out soon. So to close it up and for the final touches, ramp down,
Yeah.
total pun intended. Um, what would you like to see or get? Are you missing something in K6? We're already taking note, and that sharing of information, API or the components. What other things are you looking for, or would you time for a wish list?
Oh, I honestly I'm not.
Are you that happy with the
No,
product?
you're putting me on the spot. No, so nothing from a documentation. I'm trying to think of a technical problem. I think maybe more working solutions on providing kind of custom measurements from what XK6. I didn't find them initially.
Okay.
Something like that, maybe. Um, oh man, I wish I had a better wish list so I could like hold you to it. No, I think it's great. I think no, because man, um,
Wow, I'm surprised. Well, I give you some time to think
yeah,
that it's a tough
yeah.
task to come up with wish lists or things that you wish that you had.
Yeah, no, other than the shared event loop, I can't think of anything else. I would say, you know, oh, okay, I got one for you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
good, good, good.
I would say officially supported containers of XK6 browser. There you go.
Okay, I think that's in the official wish list. If not, hey, K6 developers.
Yeah, yeah. There's a great way of doing it in another repo, but I don't know. I'm nitpicking.
No, no, no.
That would
It's
okay. No, now that I think about it, that was my first time using Go. Was
oh,
building XK6 browser from source. I had
from
no
source. So you
from
started
source.
like from scratch.
I had never.
Oh,
I had to install Golang, which was a problem. That would the only problem I had was actually setting that up. Otherwise, everything on the K6 side was
flowed.
perfect. And then I learned about um, Go version manager through the K6 team. It's just great. Um, again, I wish I'm up here. This is my chance. I'm on a soapbox and I can't think of anything. Yeah.
Wow. No, but I mean, don't get too nervous. I'm really, really happy that you're giving this reaction. That yeah, honestly, I cannot think of anything. I'm super happy and successful life for the product, and well done, K6.
Yeah.
But if you think of any other thing, you know where to find out the support forums, everyone, how you found me, how we found each other. Because on one hand it was conference wise, right? We walked into each other. I was looking forward to talk to you after a while. Um, any future plans on your agenda?
No. So mission launches November 2023, and I
Oh,
am
gonna be busy.
I'm busy. I'm gonna potentially, hopefully, do a Star West conference talk or workshop on getting the open source community to contribute to some of our tests. We just did one in the office here. We had a someone who wanted to contribute. 30 minutes later, he's got a PR against a NASA project.
Wow.
So it was awesome. He's never used Playwright, never used anything like it, and so he just
And
got
you
up
got
and
it rolling, and
yep, and he has the
wow.
PR up and everything. So we'll be doing a workshop to get more contributions for the same reason. Um, and between now and November 2023, I will just be in my room or in the office.
Really busy.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I'm sad and glad that you are going to be that busy. I look forward if you get the workshop.
Hmm.
We'll make sure to get some coverage or try to figure out how can we contribute or help. But all right, closing notes. Some words to the people, something that you would like to share for prosperity, one small step for making.
No, no, it seems like we're getting to the point where there's enough solved problems out there that you can be like me, tough spot, not able to do everything yourself. There's enough out there, both in terms of like the general open source community, general testing, things like star conferences, where there's enough help out there to get the job done, even if you don't have the resources to do it yourself. So it's a really exciting time to be a test engineer.
It's a great world
Yeah.
and free of pandemic stuff, or almost there,
Almost.
hopefully. Where can people find you? Do you send your notes or
So I somehow avoided the whole Twitter thing, and I think it's gone.
nowadays
Yeah,
relevant that
yeah,
you
no
did?
longer. Um, but yeah, just find me on GitHub, and LinkedIn is actually the best place to find me, I think.
John Hill on LinkedIn. And what's your handle in GitHub?
Unlikely zero, and
Oh,
I
wow.
don't know why I picked that. So it has no hidden meaning.
But that's like a very, very cool name.
Yeah.
Okay, everyone. That was our amigo John Hill, who is giving us the honor of taking K6 almost to space
Yep.
and sharing some of his experience, good use, and not many more requirements, happily. That's awesome. So, amigo John, thank you very much
Thank you.
for joining me. And everybody, this is the last one of the day. I'm calling it a day, and probably I'm going to crash because tomorrow I have my keynote. So, take care, have a good night, and thank you. And thanks again, John.
Thank you.
Adios.